It wasn't there yesterday. That's what I kept telling myself, again and again, as I stared out across the lake. My morning coffee had gone cold in my hands. The sky was still a hazy slate blue, not quite day, not quite night, and the surface of the water reflected it like a mirror, perfectly still, perfectly quiet, except for the buoy, a bright red buoy, bobbing ever so slightly about 50 feet from the dock. It didn't belong there. I knew that lake. Every curve of the shoreline, every bend of the tree line, every smooth stone along the bank. I'd been coming to this cabin since I was a kid, long before I ever bought it from my uncle. My wife and I had spent summers here. Our son had taken his first wobbly swim right off this dock, and there had never been a buoy. Not there. Not anywhere. I thought maybe it was some sort of marker placed by the local fish and wildlife people, maybe for research or something. That would have made sense, except there was no boat, no equipment nearby, no sign of disturbance on the water or shore. And the thing was old. The red paint was sun-faded and chipped. Its rusted chain dipped below the surface like a black vein, vanishing into the stillness below. I finished my coffee with a shiver and headed inside. My wife, Julia, was still sleeping. The cabin was quiet, just the way we liked it. No cell signal, no Wi-Fi. The kind of silence that hums in your ears after living with noise for so long. But even as I made breakfast, scrambled eggs popping in the pan, my eyes kept drifting back to the window. The buoy remained, unmoving now, just floating there, like it was waiting. After breakfast, I walked down to the dock. The air was cool for mid-July, and the water smelled clean, with just a hint of silt. I stood there for a long time, hands in my pockets, staring at the buoy. My reflection stared back at me from the still lake water, broken only by the slow, rhythmic bob of the red buoy. I wanted to swim out to it. That was the strangest part. It wasn't curiosity. It was compulsion. Like I was meant to reach it. Like something would happen if I did. Instead, I turned around and walked back inside. We had plans that day. Julia wanted to hike one of the trails near the North Ridge, and I was more than happy to focus on anything else. But by nightfall, it was still there, still floating, still watching somehow. Julia noticed I was distracted. I told her something about being tired, maybe dehydrated. She nodded and gave me a small smile. We turned in early. I dreamed about it that night. In my dream, the buoy wasn't a buoy at all. It was a capstone, like the top of a column, and it marked something ancient beneath the water. I hovered above the lake, high in the air, the trees just dark smudges at the edge of vision. Then the lake drained away all at once, like someone had pulled a plug, and there it was, a hole. A perfect, cylindrical shaft, bored deep into black stone, wider than a man could swim across, and at the bottom, far, far below, something moved. When I woke up, my mouth was dry, and my skin was cold. Outside the window, in the light of early dawn, the buoy was closer. It had moved overnight. I stood at the window, heart knocking against my ribs like a fist behind drywall. The buoy had shifted position. It wasn't drastic, maybe 10 feet closer to the dock, but it was unmistakable. There were no waves, no wind, nothing that should have moved it. And yet, there it was, like it had crept closer while we slept. I didn't wake Julia. I threw on my boots and jacket and walked down to the dock. The morning mist clung low over the water, dense and unmoving, and the trees stood in perfect silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel natural. It presses down on you, like something holding its breath. The buoy bobbed lazily, just at the edge of reach now, a little farther out than I could touch, but not by much. I sat down on the dock and stared at it for a long time. There was something wrong with the water around it. At first, I thought it was my eyes, maybe the light. Too early, too hazy. But no. The lake around the buoy didn't ripple the same way. It was too still, like it had a skin on it, a film, and just beneath that, a shape. Faint, slow-moving. I blinked, and it was gone. Back at the cabin, Julia was pouring coffee. She asked where I'd gone, and I told her I couldn't sleep. That much was true. We hiked again that day. I tried to keep the conversation going, pointing out moss-covered boulders, listening to the birds, trying to act normal. But every time I closed my eyes, even just to blink, I saw red. That faded paint, bobbing on the water, like a warning. That night, as we cooked dinner, and the stars began to bleed into the sky above the lake, I looked out again. The buoy was gone. Panic flared in my chest. I stepped out onto the porch, scanning the dark water. It wasn't there. It was gone. Just like that. Then, something brushed the underside of the dock. A dull, wooden thud. Like a branch. I told myself it was a branch. Julia heard it too. She came to the window, curious. I told her it was probably a fish or some driftwood. She nodded slowly but didn't look convinced. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I went back outside. The lake was glass, reflecting the moonlight perfectly. Too perfectly. There were no insects, no frogs, not even wind in the trees. Just me and the water. I knelt at the edge of the dock and leaned forward. There it was. Not floating now. Sitting directly beneath the surface, barely visible in the moonlight. The top of the red buoy, submerged, like it was being pulled under, but not by any current. Held there, waiting. I leaned closer. The water distorted slightly as if something had moved just beneath the buoy. I thought I saw a pale flash, like skin. Something smooth, slipping past silently. I scrambled back so fast I almost fell. My heart thundered in my chest. I backed away until I reached the cabin door and slammed it shut behind me. The next morning, I didn't speak much. Julia could tell something was off. I almost told her. I thought about it. But how do you explain that something beneath the lake is watching you? That a buoy moved on its own and then disappeared only to return underwater, as if it was hunting? Instead, I lied, said I had a headache, that maybe we should leave early. She agreed. We began to pack. As I loaded up the truck, I heard Julia's voice from inside. "Hey," she called. "Did you leave your phone recording overnight?" "What?" She was standing in the doorway, holding my phone. "You've got an audio file saved, almost an hour long." I took it and pressed play. Static at first, then water sounds, gentle lapping, then footsteps. Slow, wet, slapping softly on wood. The sound of something walking across the dock, then stopping, then breathing. Not human breathing. Wet, gurgling, low, and then a whisper. So faint it was almost inaudible, but I caught the words. "You see it now." I looked out toward the lake one last time. The buoy had returned, and it was even closer. We left that afternoon. No arguments, no more second guessing. I loaded the truck in record time, barely speaking, checking the rearview mirror more often than I should have. Julia could tell something had cracked in me. She didn't ask for details, and I didn't offer any. As we pulled away, I looked out at the lake one last time. The buoy was back where it had been on the first day, floating innocently. Just a piece of red-painted metal bobbing in the breeze. Like nothing had ever happened. Like it hadn't moved. Like it hadn't whispered. We made it back to the city before dark. The hum of streetlights and the steady flow of traffic felt like coming up for air. I dropped Julia off at her place. We hugged, said we'd talk soon. But I knew I wouldn't call. I went home and locked every window, left the lights on in every room. That night, I didn't sleep. The audio file, somehow it was still on my phone. I played it again and again, hoping I'd misheard, hoping the whisper at the end had been a trick of the wind, a rustle in the mic, anything but what I'd heard. But no. You see it now. Those words didn't belong in the world I knew. The next few weeks blurred. Work, grocery stores, errands. I kept to a routine, tried to let it all fade. But the lake followed me. Every time I turned on the faucet, every time I walked past a storm drain or heard the rain pooling in gutters, I thought about the water. I thought about what was under it. Then, last Thursday, a package arrived. No return address, no markings. Inside was a photograph. It showed the lake, taken from the porch of the cabin. And there, in the corner, barely visible but undeniably real, was the red buoy, closer than it had ever been. At the bottom of the photo, scrawled in smudged black ink, "Don't stop watching." That night, I set my phone to record again. Not because I expected anything to happen, just to prove to myself it was over. That it had all been some prolonged breakdown, a trick of light and fear. In the morning, I checked the recording. Nothing for the first 10 minutes. Then a splash, then footsteps, then the breathing. And this time, a different voice, a child's. It remembers you. I haven't been back to the lake. I sold the truck. I moved into a high-rise, 10 stories up, with no view of any body of water. And yet, every now and then, I wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of something dripping. Just once or twice, like a faucet that won't close all the way. And every time I do, I check the window. And sometimes, I swear, for just a moment, I see something red, floating. We weren't lost. I want to be clear about that. Even now, after everything, I stand by it. We weren't lost. My brother Sam had a printed topographic map, and I had GPS tracking on my phone. We were supposed to be on a straight-line hike from the west trailhead of Black Hollow Preserve to the lake, maybe a 6-mile stretch. We'd planned it all. A night at the lakeside, a fire, maybe fishing in the morning. Just a quiet weekend. The woods were damp and quiet that Friday. No wind, no birdsong, just the steady crunch of our boots through soft earth and rotting leaves. I remember thinking it felt wrong, too still. Even Sam, who usually filled every silence with commentary or jokes, was unusually quiet. He just walked ahead, brow furrowed, map folded and refolded, like something wasn't adding up. We passed the same half-fallen birch tree 3 times. That's what finally made me stop. "I swear we already saw this," I said. He looked up, then back at the map. "Yeah, that's not possible. We haven't veered off at all." But we had. The GPS pin had shifted from the trail, even though we hadn't changed direction. That was the first sign something was off. By the time the sun dipped low, it became obvious we wouldn't reach the lake before dark. Neither of us wanted to camp in a random patch of dense forest, so when we spotted a clearing up ahead, we went for it. And that's when we saw it. A cabin. It wasn't on the map, no markings, no references in our research either. And that was weird. Black Hollow was protected land. Private buildings were illegal. There should have been nothing out here. But there it was. Old, maybe early 1900s. Cedar logs darkened by time and weather. Slanted tin roof. 2 shuttered windows, both shut tight. The front door was slightly ajar. Sam gave me a look that said, "Should we?" I said nothing. We were tired. The air was cooling fast. And even with all my unease about this place, I wasn't about to suggest we sleep outside in bear country. He knocked. No response. He pushed the door open. Wood groaned. The hinges let out a sound like breath escaping a throat. Inside it was dark, but not ruined. Dust clung to everything. Sure. But the floor was intact. The furniture wasn't rotted. There were 2 small bunks. a rusted potbelly stove, a wood table, and a lantern. There was no smell of rot or mold, though. No mustiness. In fact, it smelled warm, like cedar and something faintly metallic. I stepped in, and the floor creaked, but not dangerously. Sam found the lantern, lit it. The space glowed softly. Neither of us said it, but we were both thinking the same thing. Why was everything in here still in place? We checked the drawers. Empty. Shelves? Nothing but dust. No food, no cans, no clothing, no signs of actual recent human presence. And yet the space felt paused, like it had been waiting. We didn't speak much. I set up my sleeping bag on one bunk. Sam took the other. We boiled water on our own stove instead of touching anything in the cabins. Ate dehydrated meals in silence. It was only when I lay down that I realized something else. There were no sounds outside, no crickets, no wind, not even the distant hoot of an owl. Just stillness. That kind of silence has weight. It presses in on your eardrums until you start imagining things. You think you hear breathing, or the soft shifting of something just out of view. I rolled onto my side, trying to block it out, and noticed something strange above me. Etched into the wooden beam above the bunk, just visible in the flickering lantern light, were a few carved letters. Very faint, almost worn away. "Don't stay." I froze. I wanted to wake Sam, I really did. But he was already out cold, his breathing deep and steady. And outside, something finally moved. Not loudly, just a soft rustle, a single step of pressure on old pine needles. I didn't sleep. And in the morning, things were different. We stepped outside just after sunrise, or at least, what should have been sunrise. The light was there, that dull gray-blue haze before the sun crests the trees. But it never changed. The color deepened, sure, but the angle of the light never shifted. No birds, no insects, no warmth. Just a cold, ambient stillness that clung to everything like static. Sam stood on the porch, rubbing the back of his neck. He hadn't said a word since waking up. When I asked how he slept, he just muttered, "Weird dreams," and went quiet again. I didn't tell him about the carving above my bunk. I wanted to. I almost did. But something held me back. Like if I said it out loud, I'd be confirming we weren't imagining things. And I wasn't ready for that yet. Instead, we packed up fast. We didn't even eat. Just filled our bottles from the stream near the clearing and set off. The plan was simple. Retrace our GPS path, head northeast, get back to the trail, and then to the car. But 30 minutes in, the terrain stopped making sense. We crossed a dry creek bed, one I swear we'd never seen before. Then a boulder field. Then a stand of white birch that looked identical to the one we'd passed the day before, except from a different direction. Sam's jaw clenched tighter with every turn. He kept checking the map, then the GPS, then the compass. "They're not matching," he finally said. "What?" "They're not matching each other. None of it's matching." I walked over and looked. He was right. The GPS was showing our position inside the preserve. The compass pointed due south. The map suggested we were northeast of the lake. We were, somehow, in all the wrong places at once. "We should head uphill," I said. "Get above the tree line. Try to get signal, or at least reorient." Sam didn't argue. We hiked in silence. Hours passed. The light never changed. No shadows, no sun. Just that same dim, directionless glow. At the ridge, we finally saw it. The cabin, from above. It was about a half-mile away, nestled into the exact same clearing where we'd left it. "No," I said out loud. "That's not possible." Sam didn't speak. He just started back down the hill. We were walking in circles, but not normal circles. Something was bending space, folding it. When we passed the dry creek bed again, I stopped and screamed. Just screamed into the woods, raw and loud, like it would shatter the strange veil around us. but nothing echoed back. No birds, no wind, just us and the silence. And then Sam did something I'll never forget. He walked off the path and sat down, just sat in the dirt, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. "We're not supposed to leave," he said. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them, like a child admitting something they'd been trying to forget. I crouched next to him. "What does that mean?" "I remembered the dream," he whispered. "It wasn't a dream. It was something in the cabin. It came to me when I was asleep, or maybe I never really was." He looked up at me. His eyes were glassy. "It said we could stay, but only if we never tried to go back." My skin turned to ice. "What do you mean, it?" I didn't see it. I just knew it was there. It didn't have a voice. It just was. A presence. Big, cold, not angry, just waiting. And when I woke up, I felt like... He trailed off. "Like what?" "Like we already agreed. That's when I made the decision. We needed to leave. No matter what was going on, hallucination, gas leak, temporal loop, whatever, we couldn't stay. That cabin wasn't shelter. It was bait. We had walked into something we didn't understand, and every second we stayed was making it harder to get out." "Come on," I said. "Uphill again. Straight line. If we move fast, we can break whatever this is." Sam didn't argue. He stood. We moved. We didn't talk. We didn't rest. Every landmark blurred together. No sky shift, no time. At some point, I looked down, and there it was. Our campfire ring. Cold ash. 2 flattened patches of grass where our sleeping bags had been. Even the dent in the dirt from my dropped mug. We'd made no progress. And then I saw the cabin again. Closer this time. I didn't remember walking back. I don't think we did. 1 minute, we were trudging through the woods, pushing against exhaustion and confusion like a fog. The next, we were at the edge of the clearing again. The same crooked clearing. Too round, too silent, too still. The cabin waited, just like before. Like it had never moved, or maybe like it had never needed to. Sam didn't stop. He walked straight to the porch, like it was his own front step. I grabbed his arm, but he just looked at me. Tired, not scared anymore. Just resigned. "We're not getting out," he said. "Might as well go in." I should have screamed at him. I should have turned around. But I was just as numb. Inside, nothing had changed. The light through the windows was still that dim gray blue. The air was still too still. No dust moved. No wind creaked the beams. The room smelled faintly of mildew and pine. But there was something else now, too. The faint scent of metal and smoke. I sat on the edge of the bunk, feeling the weight of every step we'd taken since sunrise. My boots were caked in mud, my face sticky with sweat, and something I couldn't quite name. Dread, maybe. Or the kind of fear that's gotten tired of being loud. Sam wandered the room, running his hand over the surface of the table, the empty shelves, the old stovepipe. Then he stopped. There was a notebook on the shelf, open to a page with fresh handwriting. He hadn't written it. I hadn't written it, but it was our names. Sam, August 12th. Derek, August 12th. I stared at it for a long time. My mouth opened, but no words came out. The date was today. There were other names, too. Faded, scribbled further back. In shaky writing, in strong writing, in different languages. First names. Sometimes dates. Sometimes just one word. Stay. We didn't speak. We didn't move. The room felt like it was shrinking around us, like the wood was breathing, pulling in tighter, whispering secrets we weren't meant to hear. And then, for the first time in hours, something changed. The light outside dimmed. Actually dimmed. Not just the same haze. It deepened, darkened. as if something massive had passed in front of the sun. A shadow fell across the clearing. Not a figure, not a thing I could describe. Just the absence of everything else. It pressed against the walls of the cabin like it wanted to come in. Sam backed away from the window, and for a second, I thought he was going to bolt. Instead, he whispered, "It's waiting." And suddenly, it all clicked. It didn't want us dead. It didn't want to scare us. It wanted us here. It fed on presence. It drew people in, broke time, twisted direction, rewrote cause and effect until you couldn't remember if you came here on your own or if something called you, until you stopped looking for a way out and started thinking maybe, just maybe, staying was easier. I stood. My knees shook. I grabbed my backpack, still damp with sweat and forest grime. Sam didn't move. "Come on," I said. He didn't answer. I walked to the door and pulled it open. The clearing was bathed in that same shadow, and though I couldn't see anything in the trees, I felt it. Watching. Waiting. I stepped out. Every part of me screamed to go back inside. The cabin was safe. The cabin was still. But I kept walking. I didn't run. I walked. Eyes forward. No turning back. When I looked behind me finally, the cabin was gone. Gone. Just trees. Just forest. And above me the sun was rising. A real sunrise. With color and heat and birdsong. I stumbled until I hit the road. Sam never came out. No one believed me. No one ever does. The forest is full of old myths, lost trails, things people whisper about but don't really understand. I went back a month later, not to find the cabin, to see if it was even there. It wasn't. But there was a notebook, a torn scrap in a Ziploc bag, wedged between rocks near the trailhead. On it were 2 names. Only one was crossed out. Mine.